jump into
Right
it.
there.
Yeah. Does it work? Can you hear anything? Hey, can you hear yourself?
I can.
You ever done any of this?
Yeah,
A little bit.
a little bit.
You're like, yeah.
I've mostly done it over Zoom.
Oh,
It's the first
yeah,
time
that's
I've
no
actually
fun.
heard
Yeah, that's no
myself.
fun.
This is fancy.
This is the first time you've heard your voice coming through the speakers there?
Yeah.
Hey, tell me real quick. Tell me, what did you eat for breakfast this morning?
What did I eat for breakfast? 2 cups of black coffee. That's it.
That's all you had for breakfast.
Yeah. Pretty simple. Pretty boring guy.
Hey, it's good to see you.
It's good to see you too.
Man, welcome
It's been a
home.
while.
Welcome home.
Yeah.
Do you consider this your home, or is Virginia your home now?
Oh man. You know, I still consider Mississippi my home.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm a 7th generation Mississippian.
Yeah.
I'm just sort of an expat right now.
Yeah. So
I'm sure they'll plant me back there one day.
how many years in Mississippi?
I think I moved in 2000, so 30 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And then
Wait a
10
minute.
years
Wait
in
a minute.
Nashville.
Hold on.
Yeah.
No. You're 53?
No.
Well, you
no,
said
I'm 43.
2000. You moved in 2000, so 30 years there. I was working backwards going, well, that would have meant 70
No,
to 2000.
So 1980 to 2010
Okay, I'm sorry.
was Mississippi.
Gotcha. 2010. Okay. Okay. Well, that's fair. I mean, 30 years, that's a long time.
Long time.
So 30 out of your 43 years, that's a long time.
Yeah.
All right.
Then 10 in Nashville, and then Virginia for a few years, but it's
Yeah.
made me soft, man.
Yeah.
I stepped out of my truck today, and
And you were like-
I'm already sweating.
Is it not this hot in Virginia?
No, not where I live.
Because
So-
is it connected to the Appalachian Mountains?
Yeah.
So-
on Blue Ridge.
Okay, I was going to say.
Yeah, so down in the southwestern
Yeah.
corner.
So it's not as hot there, not as humid?
No.
Hey, would you like an old-fashioned? Somebody told me you like old-fashioned.
Absolutely.
Here, get you an ice cube. I made these ice cubes special last night.
Never
wanted
turned
to
one
have-
of those down.
I wanted to have crystal clear ice cubes for Blake Gore rolling into town.
I expect nothing less.
Now, what are you
The
doing in
master.
town?
So I am doing the Tomato Art Fest tomorrow in
Ugh.
East Nashville.
Oh, you're going to go hang out with all the hippies,
That's right, man.
all the
Those
hipsters.
are my people. That's my people.
Does that event do pretty well for you?
Yeah.
Tomato Art Fest.
Yeah.
I mean, tomatoes are worth celebrating.
They are. And you actually have to submit at least one piece of a drawing or painting of art of a tomato.
Really?
Yeah, to apply. So,
So,
yeah,
okay.
they take it seriously.
So it's not when they say art fest, they mean it.
Yeah.
It's an art fest. So you couldn't go down there with just like a t-shirt company.
I don't know, because I haven't. It's been a few years since I walked
Do
around.
you need a cocktail chair?
No, good.
You don't do a cocktail chair? You're old fashioned. I mean, you
I don't have to have
you-
one, but man, if it's right here, I'm absolutely going to put it in there. No, it's been a few years since I've been down there as a customer,
Mhm. Yeah.
right? So
How long does that thing last?
just one day, but it always seems to be the hottest day of the year.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's August in Tennessee.
Dog
You
days.
know. Pass me that jar if you don't mind.
Man,
Thank you, sir.
yeah,
Thank
but
you,
it's
sir.
always good to be back, man. It's hard to keep up with Nashville from a distance. It's hard to keep up with Nashville when you're here.
I was talking to somebody the other day. Nashville. Hey, cheers, by the way.
Yes, sir.
Welcome back.
Thanks.
Now, this is, Blake, this is our, I mean, I didn't go scratch. I used our Eli Mason product, all right? But this is our new barrel-aged old-fashioned mixer. So we took our old-fashioned mixer, and then we borrowed some barrels from Leaper's Fork Distillery.
Mm-hmm.
And so we scheduled it where they had a dump day where they were going to be dumping a bunch of barrels. And so they loaned us a couple of barrels, freshly emptied. We took them, filled them up with our old-fashioned syrup, and we let them age for a copious number of days.
Nice.
Weeks. We let them age for a bunch of weeks. And then when we felt like we got it right, we bottled it up. So it's our traditional old-fashioned syrup, but it's been sitting in that oak, resting in oak for over a month. And so you just kind of get, I don't know, there's a little extra oaky
good.
vanilla. I mean, it's really good. I like this a lot.
It's really good. Well, came to the right place for an old-fashioned.
There you go. We like to serve old-fashions around here.
The man.
So how long have you, if people don't know, if you meet somebody at a cocktail party and they're like, oh, hey, Blake, no,
what do you do?
Yeah, inevitably we're going to get asked that question. Especially, I think a lot of times as men, we're like, well, what do you do? What do you do? What do you do?
Yeah.
So somebody says, oh, Blake, nice to meet you. Now, what do you do, Blake? How do you describe what you do?
I usually say I'm an artist, and then I just pause and let the weirdness settle in. And then just let them get uncomfortable, and then I'll tell them a little bit about myself.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a fun, wild, unpredictable story. But yeah, I'm a miniaturist specifically.
So is that how you would describe it? So not a mini artist. You would say I'm a miniaturist.
Miniaturist.
Wow.
So I draw with.
Did you come up with that, or did you
inch.
learn that was what it's called?
They're out there.
Really? So that's what people who do that call themselves.
Yeah, but a miniaturist, it's a pretty broad term. So a lot of people work in 3D. It's like dollhouse miniatures and things like that. So most people that are into, when I say, I do miniatures, most of the time people assume I paint small figures or I make furniture for dollhouses or whatever. Yeah. So I have to be a little bit more specific. So I draw usually within a square inch. Sometimes, my smallest is probably about half the size of my pinky nail. Yeah. Mostly in pen and ink. Yeah.
That is really, really small.
I've done that full time for a couple of years now. I'd say the first 15, 16 years of my career was in counseling / education.
Were you counseling? I'm curious about that. Were you counseling adults, kids? What did that look like?
Yeah, so I went back to graduate school to eventually start my own counseling practice, and that was the plan. But while I was accumulating my hours, because you have to accumulate just a ridiculous amount of hours to get your licensure.
Yeah.
While I was doing that, I worked in court-mandated substance abuse. I did just kind of the general type of counseling, family counseling, couples, depression, anxiety, etc. Even did a lot of.
Your phone turned on over there? Is that me?
Yeah, that's me.
Oh, come on, Blake!
Rookie mistake.
Come on.
It's a fellow artist.
Oh dear. Oh man, I did the same thing. Look at that. That's so funny. Okay.
Hope you got a good editor.
Yeah. No, this will all go on. I don't edit, dude. I've learned how to speed it up. And I don't
keep it natural.
We will end, and I'm gonna say less than 10 minutes after this ends. It'll be on the internet.
It's impressive.
Yeah, it'll be fast.
My perfectionism would crush me doing this.
I had to get past that. I had to get past it. So I'm sorry. We had some phone interruptions there, but so you were counseling.
Yeah, so I did some of that. I did. Interestingly enough, I did a lot of play therapy and even did some art therapy, but eventually found my way into career counseling, career coaching at Ole Miss. I was having a kid. It was a very convenient position for me at the time, and a place where I could finish up my licensure requirements, and just ended up staying in education. Yeah, I loved working with people at that stage of their lives, trying to answer some really big questions and grappling with career. And, I had even noticed in my quote-unquote clinical counseling that a lot of people that were presenting with, let's say, depression or anxiety or relational challenges they'd come in every week, and we'd end up talking about work.
Yeah.
So, gained a greater appreciation for the role that plays in people's lives, and also for how little support people have for that.
Yeah.
So, and that eventually brought me to Nashville, where I worked at Vanderbilt's business school for 10 years. Yeah,
I mean, but I'm just, like, I know you now as Blake the artist.
Yeah.
The miniaturist.
Yeah.
How on earth do you go from that to being a full-time miniaturist?
It's funny because, I felt like I've lived between two worlds here for a while. I think the people that really know me and have known me for a long time knew that it might not have been as surprising to them, just because I'm very curious. There are very few things that cross my path that I'm not interested in learning something about, and this was just one of those things that just really stuck and was very public facing. People could see it.
Yeah.
So how it started was that I saw a drawing prompt on Twitter, and it was to draw a 1-inch drawing every day for a month and share it. And I just looked fun, something to do over breakfast before work. And, 30 days later, I had built a habit, and people thought it was kind of cool, and I really enjoyed it. So I kept doing it, and
so you were posting
became
them
a thing.
every day on Twitter.
Yeah.
You would video it, or you would just take a picture of it?
Just a picture.
Okay, so not even proof that you were the one doing it. Just, I did this, take a picture, post it on Twitter, hey, I did this.
Yeah. And it was something that, it was hosted by a museum in the UK. So most of the people that were doing it were European, and not all of them spoke English either. So it was a very social thing. So a lot of the people I'm communicating with, I'm having to translate tweet to understand what they're saying. And
Yeah, that's funny.
But it was very social, and I really enjoyed meeting people that I otherwise would not have met. And it was just a very different experience than work. And it stimulated a part of me that I think had just kind of been dormant for a little while, because I feel like, especially in this day and age, what is appreciated and encouraged is hyper specialization. Whether that's in our careers, or you even see it in kids' sports. Pick a sport, you just be the best you can. When I was growing up, when we were growing up, lots of times people played 2, 3, 4 different sports and just had fun with it and just explored. And I felt like, as my career progressed in education, I felt that kind of pressing down on me, and feeling this pressure to sort of refine the brand and micromanage this little thing called career that increasingly was becoming and looking a lot more like life.
Yeah.
And kind of taking over. And it was a little pressure valve that turned out to have a lot more weighting on me.
But I mean, how, you start out that first 30 days, and then how quickly did you, how long did you do it just as a hobby before you started to think, man, maybe people would pay me
some legs on?
Yeah, maybe I could make a living doing this.
I think I had been, so that was about 2018. I think I had posted maybe for a couple of months where somebody messaged me or DM'd me on Twitter and said, hey, do you sell these things? And I just thought it was a ridiculous question.
What were you doing with them up to that point, though? Were you storing them or just pitching them?
Just laying around. I actually compiled the drawings of that 30 days into one piece of paper, and I think I had it hanging on my wall in my office.
Yeah.
Just something fun. But they asked me, and then I'm like, well, what do you sell something like this for? This can't be worth much, and all that sort of stuff. And that spring, which I guess was about 6 to 8 months later, there was an art festival back where I'm from in Oxford, Mississippi, and decided to do that and just kind of see what kind of interest there would be. And
was that double decker?
Yeah.
That was the first one you did?
First one.
Wow, that's fun.
I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
I was clueless, but luckily I had my whole tribe out there, my wife and 4 kids, and wasn't prepared for the wind. I had kids holding legs of the tent down, and I had a lattice that I had attached my art to that on the way home blew out of my truck out onto the interstate. I mean, it was a hot mess. But from a money standpoint, it was well worth the time. And I think that I maybe did a couple of more that spring. I think Made South was actually one of the first ones.
Man, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, back in Liberty Hall.
Yeah.
And that next year I thought, all right, well, let's do a few more.
And you're still full-time counselor at this point, right?
Full-time.
Yeah.
Full-time.
So just doing this on the weekends when you can squeeze in, take a little extra PTO, go down somewhere.
Yeah. And just squeezing in drawing time. Like I'd go on my lunch break across the street over at Vandy or just draw something on campus or whatever.
Are people thinking you're weird during this time? Or your friends like, dude, what are you doing? Or
Chris, people
thought you've been weird.
I've never been accused of being too normal.
Me neither.
And honestly, that has been a part of me that I don't think I think I probably still grapple with that a little bit, even in middle age, but I've become much more comfortable with it than I used to be.
Because when you say you grapple with it, what does that mean? You don't want to be thought of as weird, or what?
I just don't think it's easy to categorize me. As soon as somebody thinks they've got it figured out, I'll say something, do something like, "Whoa, wait."
Yeah.
I keep them on their toes.
Yeah.
And that, I joke about it, but I really did struggle with that. In high school, I I played a lot of sports, but also loved to study.
Yeah.
And I think my kids, it drives them nuts, but I think I've got like 8,000 songs on my Spotify, and they're just across every genre of music.
Sure.
Dad, what in the world? But, I've got a hungry mind, and sometimes that's a good thing, but sometimes it does wear me out.
Yeah.
For sure.
When you say 8,000 songs on Spotify, that seems overwhelming to me.
It's a lot.
Are these individual? They can't be individual songs. No. Some of it's got to be like, oh, I like this record. I'm gonna add this record.
I've probably added. I mean, I may have added 2 or 3 records of like the Rolling Stones because I just know I like all their stuff.
Exile on Main Street, right?
But it's good stuff.
It's one of my top 10 favorite albums of all time. Unbelievable.
Love it. I missed. They came to Nashville.
I know, dude.
When I lived here, and I missed it. And I'll regret that.
They played at Vanderbilt, yeah.
But individual songs, man. The Discover Weekly when Monday morning hits.
Yeah,
I'm on it.
Yeah, still to this day, Monday Discover Weekly.
Oh, every day.
Really?
Every day. Yeah, every Monday when that Discover Weekly comes out on Spotify. That algorithm, I don't know what kind of magic they've got going, but they know what I like.
They know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Who are some of those people who you feel like that tool has helped you discover over the last little bit that you're like, wow, these people are fantastic?
Wow. Oh, you name it.
When you
a lot of my stuff is not in the top 40 or stuff people are
that's what I was going to say. You said, I like all kinds of music,
Mm-hmm.
Are there genres that you don't really listen to, or is it just like, no, dude, I can go from NWA to Beethoven to Jason Isbell to Florida Georgia Line? I mean, like, where do
I draw the line?
There have to be some lines somewhere.
I'm not a fan of ska.
Okay, so no Mighty Mighty Boss Stones.
That's the one exception.
Yeah. Oh, you like Mighty Mighty Boss Stones?
I like one or two of their songs. The song that was on the Clueless soundtrack.
Yeah.
Where did you go?
I forget how it goes, but
but that's about it for ska. And there's some more of the some of the more recent hip hop's not my speed.
Yeah.
But if you name anything from the 90s, I
Tupac,
probably had it on cassette.
Tupac, Biggie.
Mm-hmm. I was probably hiding it from my parents.
Yeah, for sure.
Had my little spot.
For sure. Snoop, Dre.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
G-Funk. All that West Coast stuff.
That's funny. I love it.
But again, I could listen. I don't listen to much of it anymore, but I can appreciate that.
Yeah.
I love Americana. That's probably my favorite.
Yeah. I can see that. So you're doing these shows.
Mm-hmm.
You're still full-time counselor. But you're like, man, this is kind of interesting. I set up, hang out for a day or two. People look at my art. They pay me money. It seems like it's worth the time.
It's a lot different.
How long did it go along as a hobby or a side hustle? Maybe not a hobby, but a side hustle before you started thinking like, okay, well, maybe I do this full time. Maybe I don't want to counsel people anymore.
Yeah. Well, 2020, like it was for a lot of people, was a big watershed year for me.
Yeah.
For just a million different reasons. You know, and I kind of chose for that year, I wanted to get the most out of it, because it really, looking back on it, it's just, it almost seems like it wasn't real.
It really does.
It seems
man.
like a
we were
dream.
talking about that the other night. Yes.
And in some ways, I feel like a piece of me is kind of still stuck in that. In some good ways, but also in maybe some not so good ways. But it did give me, and I think a lot of people, a lot of time to reflect on, what's going on.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
It's turning 40 that year. You start looking up over the hill and asking some tough questions, and for a lot of different reasons. I mean, I'd been thinking about leaving education for a while, so that was happening alongside this growing art thing, and then it converged in 2020. And I was like, all right, let's pull the trigger and do it. And it was scary. I mean, I never thought of myself as the entrepreneurial type.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I'm not a business, quote unquote, person.
Neither am I,
I've
bro.
never taken a business class, and I thought, am I insane? I'm married, I got 4 kids, my wife homeschools, so, all these people depend on me, and it's not like I saved up a whole bunch of money from education.
Sure, yeah.
But, you start asking some hard questions, and what's really important to you, and here we are.
Well, I mean, I know from my experience, whenever I went through that similar thinking, that similar decision-making time, my guess is it sounds like you enjoyed counseling. Mm-hmm. It sounds like it wasn't like you hated it. Maybe it was heavier, more difficult. It was getting heavier. I don't know. But I know when I went through that in 2013, when I really started thinking about, man, do I want to leave this kind of comfortable thing that I love to go do something that's unknown, risky, feels dangerous? I talked a lot with my wife. We didn't have 4 at the time. We had 3, but I mean, she was homeschooling as well, and so staying at home, and man, I remember those times. Those were scary moments, like, because we're having those conversations. Obviously, I want us to be on the same page, on the same team. I valued her input. Were you having conversations like that a lot with your wife?
Yeah, 100%. I think that I have the great blessing / burden of having a super supportive spouse. And I say burden because I know that, after those conversations, she's going to trust me to make the right call, right. And then it's on me.
Yeah, she's going to say, well, hey, if you're good with it, okay. She's going to be supportive. But there's a lot of weight that comes with that on you, because you're like, I know she's going to be supportive if I want to do it. I need to make sure this is the right thing.
Yeah. And it's a lot of responsibility, but I think that once the decision was made, it was like, get after it. I don't leave myself enough time to sit around and worry about
second guess it and all that good stuff.
No,
how long was this something that like came up over course of days or weeks or how long did you two labor
about it? I've been talking about it for years.
So it'd been something you had talked about on and off for years, where she knew at some point he's going to want to make this leap.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, and we don't have to go into a tremendous amount of detail with this, but I mean, as an industry, I think that the goals and values of higher education had moved in a different direction than I think they were, or at least that I was aware of earlier in my career. And I just knew that I needed to do something different. And again, I think you start getting into middle age, a lot of people, they start to value different things differently too. And so we had talked about it. I just wasn't sure exactly what that thing would be. And And then the art thing came along, and I'm like, all right, well, I guess this is the thing.
Man. Do you remember the actual conversation where the two of you were like, okay, this is actually going to happen? Do you remember that? Like, I remember it. I remember it in vivid detail. Driving to church, kids in the back, and it was like, I remember that specific conversation where we had talked about it for a long time too, but it was the first moment. I mean, she was always like, hey, let's keep thinking about it. But it was the first moment where she was like, let's circle a date on the calendar, and that's your walkaway date. That's the date you're going to go in.
Yeah.
And tell them you're not going to do this anymore.
Yeah.
And that was a shift. That was a different conversation. It was like, did you just really give me the green light on this? Yeah. Do you remember that conversation where it was like, this feels different than all the other times we've talked about this in the past? I mean, there had to be like one moment.
I'm not sure if it was 1 minute, but there certainly was 1 week.
Yeah.
I'd say a week. And yeah, it's funny because you're bringing up some things that now I'm remembering. She did look at me and said, "All right, it's time." I mean, come to think about it, she may have even floated that out before I did.
She may have been the one to actually say, you think it's time we do this?
I mean, it was just, when you know, you know. I mean, I think I was starting to have health problems.
Yeah, yeah.
And I started to wonder, man, how long am I going to be here if I stay on this track? I was just breaking down in a lot of different ways. And
was that occupation of counseling, was it tied to some of those health problems, you think, or would it?
It's hard to say. I mean, I think some of it, I'm still working through it, to be honest with you, and kind of looking back and thinking through it. I mean, some of it was trying to force. If I was a square, I was trying to get into a different sized hole.
Yeah, yeah.
And some of that, I mean, I'm not a political animal.
Right.
It's not what I do. And I think when it comes to working with clients or students, individuals, teaching, love it. Organizationally, like navigating bureaucracy and things like that, which are necessary in a big organization.
Right.
I'm not necessarily knocking that. It just, as in a lot of industries, as you move up the chain, you end up finding yourself working a lot less on the front line and more kind of behind the scenes and in meetings all day. And I just kind of took a step back and said, yeah, this was never what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
But, the norm is, well, you need to be working towards promotions, and you kind of, that's what you end up doing.
Yeah, that's the corporate ladder, man.
I'm not doing this. It's not worth any benefit.
Yeah.
Monetarily or any kind of power or anything like that. I mean, it's like, what am I doing?
Were there politics involved? And I don't mean like blue, red, left, right, but I mean, were there corporate politics involved in having to play that or continue to play that game?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I think if you gather more than 3 or more people together,
yeah,
you're
gonna have what I like to call a shit show. And I don't cuss a lot. I don't think I ever. But I mean, we're humans, you know. And
I mean, we're all broken.
Yeah.
And you put us in a room and try to make decisions, and you throw some ambitions in there, and people are going to act weird. Yeah. Including myself. I mean, I say this as, sometimes that kind of environment brings out the worst in me. So it was walking into the unknown, working for myself. But I did know that I wasn't made for that.
What a terrifying experience. I mean, but it's interesting because like I genuinely, I've discovered this about myself over the last year. I love almost more than anything. Do you need another ice cube? The heat is melting this thing like crazy. All right. I love almost more than anything in business. I love talking to people who are currently in some type of 9-to-5, but they have a dream. They have something that they would love to bring into reality, and they go, man, I would love to be doing that full time. I would love to create this. I would love to go fill in the blank and not be tied to this for the rest of my life. And I've learned, in the last year or two, those are my favorite conversations. But it's also, I can look back and I go, I've created some of the more scarier moments in my entire life by making that leap. I never regret doing it. But I go, some of the most scary moments I've ever had, barring like physical trauma on some family member or something real, like that. It's terrifying to be a small business person. Mm-hmm. It's terrifying to try to go do something
especially
for yourself.
Today.
Yes, it's terrifying. And so many things that I have screwed up, bad decisions I've made, that have cost real money. And I'm like, oh my gosh, is this, whatever this thing I'm working on, is this thing going to survive me making this error to mess it up? And so it's a weird place because I want to encourage more people to take that leap. But also, like, golly, I mean, you're it's terrifying.
It is. And it's not just you. Like
no,
you said,
it's everybody.
Right. I mean, and it's, the consequences are going to be felt by your kids, by your spouse.
Yeah.
And we all know that so many arguments in marriages are money related. Yeah. But as you were saying that, it made me think of a book that I just reread. I read it, I guess, about maybe 15, 16 years ago. Just reread it again. It's called Status Anxiety. Just trying to get behind.
Okay, I need to hear about this.
That's good stuff. But there was a stat in here that's really, I think, touches on some of the stuff that we're talking about. But in 1800, just 20% of Americans had an employer other than themselves.
How many? Say that again. 1800. How many?
1800, just 20% of American workers had an employer other than themselves. By 1900, the figure was up to 50%.
Right.
And by 2000, 90%.
Wow. Okay.
So
Man.
What we're experiencing as the norm is super new in human history.
Yeah.
Super new. So employers are also getting larger, whereas in 1800, less than 1% of Americans' workforce was employed by an organization having 500 or more employees. By 2000, the figure stood at 55%.
So by the year 2000, which it's got to have grown since then, you would think.
Absolutely.
But 23 years ago, 55% of Americans worked for a company that had more than 500 employees.
Yeah.
Wow, that's insane to me.
Yeah. So if you
and
look
200
at
years ago, 200 something odd years ago,
we were the norm.
We were the norm. we were in the majority, overwhelming majority
for most of human history.
Yeah.
So you gotta take a step back and say, wow, I'm not knocking all those jobs, and they're
for sure.
great for so many people. Yeah. But how much of us and kind of how we have operated for a really long time is just not clicking with the way that most work is today.
Man, yeah. It is. It's an experience that I would love more people to have, but it's also really hard to talk people into, because if you're going to be honest about it,
it's hard.
It's hard, man. So you've been full time for how many years?
So, let's see. The first year I did some, I would say maybe 50-50 coaching art.
Yeah.
So I had my private coaching business. In the past year, I'd say at least, or the past year and a half, maybe 95%.
Wow.
Art.
So you still do some of that coaching?
Still do some on the side.
Yeah.
It's just hard to really give people what I feel like they need.
Yeah.
When I'm tired.
Yeah.
Because it's just a wild difference to my old job. In my old job, I was sitting at a desk all day long.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought I was getting cool when I got a standing desk. That was to make it a little bit more active. Now I think I'm doing maybe 35 shows this year.
Oh,
so
my
that's
gosh.
35 weekends.
Wow.
So the labor involved in setting up, breaking down.
It's one every 10 days.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's a lot. And then, so my weekends are my work.
Mm-hmm.
Middle of the week, I'm making every day. So I never really have like a day off, but I don't say that in a negative way.
Yeah.
I'm doing something that I love. I have a tremendous amount of flexibility.
Oh, it's the best, dude.
Yeah.
The flexibility is the number one benefit, I feel like.
Yeah.
The time freedom that you gain when you do something like you and I are doing, where it's not, I'm under no, I have no desire. I was talking about this with a guy 2 days ago. I have no desire to go grow something to the point where I need managers and team members and teams, and I want to, and all these. I have no desire to do it. I like being me. I like, maybe partnering with an individual or two or something and working on things on the side. But I don't have, and the time freedom that you get from that is just tremendous. And I honestly think it's the number one benefit of being on your own. Because it ain't the money. It ain't the money for me. I make way less money today than I used to.
Yeah.
But my time freedom and just my, man.
Yeah.
But it's hard for people to grasp that.
It is. And it looks different for different people in small business too. Like, because I do struggle with being on the road a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, there are nights, there are many more nights where I'm away.
Mm-hmm.
From my family, and I don't think that super long term that's sustainable.
Yeah.
However, when I'm home, I'm super home.
Yeah.
I'm
You're
available
there
all day long.
Yeah.
I feel like the quality time that I have with my children now just far exceeds before. Because even if I was home, if I was completely exhaused, mentally,
you're not
emotionally,
yeah,
I'm just not there.
Yeah.
I mean, I would fall asleep in the recliner at night and just be gone, just not there for him. And I think that's it's important just to be around, because you never know when those moments are going to be. You can't, it's really hard to plan a meaningful moment, especially with a child. We just kind of have to be around.
Yeah.
And when it happens,
you're grateful that it happens.
You never see it. It could be on the car ride to drop them off somewhere, and they say, "Hey, Dad, about something," and you're just like, "Whoa, where in the world that come from?"
Yeah. Is there an opportunity to take the family on the road sometimes? Do they get the chance to do that with you?
Oh yeah. So they kind of take turns, and I leave it up to them. It's not like you got to come help me this weekend.
Right.
And there's some places they would rather go than others.
Yeah.
I mean, most of these shows are in fun places. So, of course, when we're going to Virginia Beach or somewhere like that, everybody's lining up.
Oh, yeah, we want to go.
And I love Indianapolis, but when I go to Indianapolis, they're like,
nah, we're cool.
I'm kind of busy.
We're landlocked. Wait a minute, landlocked in Indiana?
Yeah.
Nah, we'll stay. We're cool.
Yeah.
No offense to people from Indiana.
Not at all.
But kind of. No.
It is made south.
I mean, yeah. I don't.
But I think also that they are getting a glimpse into a world that was alien to me until just a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
I mean,
and there's value in that. Like,
yeah. I mean, they work, when they come and help me, they work hard, and I reward that.
Yeah.
And they see me working hard. When I was growing up, and my dad still works. He's 85, but he's a physician, and there was a distance in me understanding like what his work looked like. You can't be in the room with his patients. I mean, I think they're getting a view of what I do, how much I do for them. And there's a reciprocal value to that too. I think there are many times where I know they don't want to do something, but they see me do it and they're like, "Hey, Dad, let me help out with that." I was just a punk little kid.
Boy,
that would have never occurred to me.
Yeah. Selfish. Yeah, I was the biggest jerk on the planet.
You didn't know me yet.
Bro, I don't know. I think I can think back to, I have 3 teenagers now and a 7-year-old. And our oldest is 18. She's our only girl. And then we have 15, 13, 7-year-old boys. And like, man, teenager life. How old's your oldest?
17.
Well,
She's
and
a
you
senior
have,
this year.
And yours are 3 girls, 1 boy?
Yeah.
Yeah. How old's your boy?
12.
Yeah. He's probably not lost his mind yet.
No. He's
Does he give you glimpses of it?
He's changing a little.
Yeah.
I try to use that to my advantage.
Yeah.
He can lift a little bit more now.
That's good. Man,
let's say his interests are changing.
Yeah. Same here. And like, I mean, it's the hardest thing we've ever done. Raising teenagers.
Yeah.
Is just, but I've had to sit down and think about it and be real with my thinking about like, well, what kind of teenager was I? Oh my gosh. Well, I was horrible. I think it's rare not to be a horrible teenager. Maybe especially if you're a boy. I think boys might be a little bit rougher than girls, man, and it's just so there's a lot of grace that I just go, well, I remember when I was a boy and I was a deadgum idiot.
No.
It's hard.
We were having this exact same conversation last night. One of my girls was out with a group of guys and girls. It was mixed company. But my wife said, "Oh, are you okay with that or whatever?"
How old is she?
She's 15.
15. Oh man.
And I said, "Let me tell you about some things I was doing when I was 15." And it was just so bad. It was just awful. And and I I'm like, I wouldn't have wanted my kids to hang out with me.
Oh my gosh. I would have.
Just a knucklehead.
Knucklehead is a great word. That's the word I've started using. Somebody told me that. I was calling them something worse than that. Not to their face. Not to their face. But just privately, me and my wife, I was calling them much worse than that. But then somebody said, man, they're just knuckleheads. And like...
Can't think past this afternoon.
And I latched onto that, so I've started trying to use that and be a little more kind in my words, word descriptors for them.
It's more appropriate for podcasts.
Yeah, that's right. I try to keep I don't want to put an MA rating on this thing. Shit shows about I think that's the first time I've ever cursed on this podcast.
I bring that out in people.
You make me very comfortable in that.
Well, I paid a lot of money to learn how to do that.
So full time, 95%. It's art now.
Yeah.
Who are, I would imagine you connect with other artists either at these events or online or things like that. Are there a few? Because here's what I find. I don't know how to make art, but I love it.
Yeah,
I love it. I love looking at it. I love just the wonder. I don't understand the brain. It happens with me with visual art and food. So if I go sit at a restaurant with some really amazing chef and I look at this plate and I taste this food and I go, I don't understand the brain that it takes to create this, to put these things together, make it look like this, make it taste like this. I don't understand it. I look at your art. I don't understand how that happened. And like we've talked some in the past at events and things. It's not like you. I think people look at your stuff and go, "Oh my gosh, this guy's been doing this for 30 years." Like, no, that's not the case. I mean, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, got started. It's not been that long. Do you connect with other people that you look at their things and you go, this blows my mind. I don't understand this. Who are some of those people?
Always. I mean, and even though I didn't create art until recently, I've always been fascinated with the creative process. Mm-hmm. I mean, when I go to New York, it's hard for me not to spend the whole time at the Met.
Yeah.
And get stuck on just one floor or one section. I mean, I've spent entire days just in the armor rooms, marveling at how somebody could make that.
Yeah.
So I've always had that part of me. When I was an undergrad, I was an English major, and what you said earlier about your attraction to bringing an idea to life. That really resonates with me, whether that be in literature, poetry, painting, drawing, performance art. Again, I love go down to Broadway, watch a show. Again, go back to my hometown in Houston, Mississippi, and tell people that I would enjoy that. Like, what's wrong with this guy? But then, I go to New York City and tell people, man, I love to dove hunt. Look at me funny.
And they
too.
look at you funny. Yeah,
So
yeah.
You just got to keep them on their toes.
Yeah.
But I feel like we've never lived in a time in human history where it was easier to learn something. And I think we take that.
Amen.
We take that for granted. But people our age were kind of the last group of people that remember life before that. Because when we were growing up, if we wanted to learn something, you better take a class, go to the library, and hope you've got a good library, and figure it out.
Yeah.
I mean, these days, this little thing in my hand, I can learn anything I want for free, instantaneously.
Instantly, yes.
But, man, it's so dadgum hard to get away from just the silly distractions.
Oh.
Because
I could get my kids off of the YouTube Shorts and onto learning things on YouTube. Oh my gosh, it's endless.
We're primed for distraction.
Yeah.
I mean, I think my attention span now is, it's just shameful, even compared to the 20-year-old me. Now, hopefully, I'm a little bit more mature. But as far as my attention span, it's bad. I mean, I'll be the first one to admit it. I love scrolling through some goofy videos, and I make some goofy videos sometimes. But yeah, I mean, if it's a powerful tool, and with great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah.
And you can learn and do some cool stuff today, but you got to be intentional about it.
Yeah, I remember sitting. I was working for Dave at least when I learned about YouTube, and it was just like, wait a minute, what?
Yeah. Like, you can go and
it's free? And it's free? Like, nobody's charging me? Dude, it blew my mind. And, in that same vein, I feel like we're the last generation where I feel like college was kind of mandatory for us. Like, it was, not everybody got to go to college, but it was like, you better go to college.
Yeah.
And now, I know I feel that, my goodness, I know I feel this way about my kids. I don't want them to go to college. That's a weird thing to say. I don't want my kids to go to college. Unless, there's this caveat of like, unless you really feel called to be a psychologist, okay, you need to go to college. If you really feel like, Dad, I want to be a heart surgeon, you got to go to college. Yeah, you got to go. You got to do that. An attorney, Lord knows, I can't imagine why anybody would want to be an attorney. But I got one kid who's really good at arguing, like really good. She does mock trials at her school, and like she wins every one. And all the parents go, dude, she's good at this. She's prepared, and she's got this. And I go, honey, I mean, maybe you would like being an attorney.
Yeah.
If that's the case, you need to go to college for that. But otherwise, I'm telling my kids, if you want to be a programmer, if you want to be a welder, if you want to be an artist, I would tell you to avoid college like the plague. The debt that most people will incur, although we would encourage them to go to state schools, and we got programs here that offer free college, for kids who have certain grades. But that feels weird to say. Like, I would prefer my kids not go to college in today's world.
Yeah.
Is that weird though?
Well, it's not as weird as hearing it from somebody that worked in the industry for over a decade, and there's all of that resonates with me. We're going through that right now with my oldest, and we're still working through it and see what she wants to do. But I'm with you. I mean, make sure that college is intentionally an investment towards a goal that you want to reach.
Sure.
It's a lot of money. It's a lot of time just to do it.
Yeah.
Much less graduate school.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've got a lot of stories, about all of this stuff. But to really get it down to brass tacks, I have seen zero correlation between highly educated, extremely quote unquote successful people and the opposite when it comes to happiness.
Yeah. Oh man.
Zero correlation. I mean, there's some really successful people that are happy and miserable.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people who are living paycheck to paycheck with very minimal education that are happy.
Yeah.
And some of them are miserable.
Yeah.
So it's almost happiness, fulfillment, living a meaningful life in service to others exists outside of that.
Yeah.
And I do think that the myth that says college was required for that for that kind of life, I think it died with our generation, or maybe the generation after us. And I think that's a good thing. I mean, I think that if I could go back, honestly, I would. And I try not to do this thought exercise too much because I can't go back. But you know what? It would. It wouldn't be a bad idea for me, and I think to some degree I would enjoy maybe doing something like plumbing.
Yeah. Dude.
And building my own business. And
it's so funny. It's so funny you said plumbing because, like, we're actively talking to our kids right now about trades.
Mm-hmm.
I
tangible good for someone.
I do not. I don't see. I mean, and it's just weird that we got to talk about like AI and crap. But I mean, people are always going to need their toilets fixed.
Yeah.
People are always going to have a leaky faucet and they don't know what to do with it. And I know, like, I'm not handy in that way, and that can drive my wife crazy at some point. But if we have a leaky toilet, and now I will say over the last few years, my wife has been the one to go, I can hop on YouTube and figure out how to fix that. And she does most of the time. But for a large portion of people, like, man, they got a leaky faucet, they call a plumber. And, like our daughter just turned 18 in July, and all of her friends are doing college visits. All of her friends are getting acceptance letters. And she has zero desire to go to college. We're like, do you just want to go visit some just in case? She's like, why on earth would I go visit college?
This is our story.
Yeah, she's like, I'm not going to college.
We're living the same life, Chris.
I don't want to go to college. There's zero desire in me to go to college. For the last 2 to 3 years, she's known. You ask her what she wants to do, she's like, well, I know I want to go into hair and makeup. I know I want to do that. Mm-hmm. I know I want to go to eschatology school. I want to get my license. Eventually, she would say her dream is to like own her own boutique and do hair and makeup for women. And she's even got a little bit of like a ministry thing on the side of it where she goes, I want to shut down one Saturday a month and invite lower income girls in and teach them makeup and hair tricks that they can do on their own to improve their self-image. And I want to teach them about being made in the image of God and how he views them as beautiful. And I go, you're 18?
Right.
And I go, that's beautiful. And you don't have to go to school to do that. I mean, you got to go to eschatology school, which I think is a year. It's a year program, and it's free in the state of Tennessee. It's a trade school.
You won't be paying for it till you're 50.
No. But even if you did have to pay for it, it'd be very inexpensive. But
she's being intentional about it.
She is being very intentional.
Education she's acquiring it to be able to go out and do something. Most importantly, in the service of others.
Yeah, and if you really, I mean, I don't know a woman who doesn't get their hair done 3 or 4 times a year. Like it's always going to kind of be there. I don't know that we're ever going to turn robots loose on. Robot comes in, opens your doors underneath your sink, camera. I mean, maybe we end up in that world, but I see them more as like, delivering packages or whatever.
Yeah.
But maybe they're going to fix faucets.
But you know
I
what?
don't know.
If they're fixing faucets, by that point, none of us are going to have jobs.
Yeah, I'm
That's
gonna
the
be
way
long
I
gone.
look at it.
We're gonna be on that guaranteed income thing.
AI is already taking out the artists. So.
Oh, dude, have you messed around with ChatGPT at all?
Oh yeah, yeah.
It is terrifying.
It's
Does it
interesting.
terrify you, or are you just like, it's not that big of a deal?
It did in the beginning. I felt like some of those headlines, they
Yeah.
went back and corrected some things.
Yeah.
Because you could get it to say a lot more in the early stages.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
now it's pretty consistent, at least with me, when I try to get it to say something crazy.
Yeah.
Say, I'm just a software. I don't have opinions.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, I'll tell you, like, early on, I asked it to write a 3-verse song in the style of Morgan Wallen. And dude, it did.
It was good too, wasn't it?
I was like, bro, this is the best song Morgan Wallen's ever put out. I don't even really like Morgan Wallen all that much, but I got teenage boys that do.
It was about not making the show in Oxford, Mississippi.
Boy, that's a sore spot, man. My first time in Oxford. And that's when I walk away with.
I'm so sorry that was your introduction.
I was
man.
bummed out, man. I was so bummed out. Yeah, and I think Double Decker was maybe that next week, because I met up with an artist friend of mine while we were there, Bradley Gordon, and he was like, "Yeah, we got this big thing coming up next week," and I was like, "Is that Double Decker?" He said, "Oh yeah, man." He said it's great. He was like, "It's one of the best things we do." Double Decker. I've never been.
You would have had a lot more fun just staying down there for that.
I know.
But I had never. I was coming into town because I was staying at my parents the week before Double Decker. I was coming into town when the traffic from the canceled concert was leaving town.
Oh, really?
And I have never seen so many cars bumper to bumper down that highway ever in my life. Even leaving Ole Miss football games, it was insane.
Man, that was a rowdy night because, his fan base, it tends to be a little bit on the redneck side. I don't think that's a surprise to anybody. I mean, my son is a half redneck. I would consider myself a slightly polished redneck. So I'm still in that vein.
Got a one-eyed dog.
I got a one-eyed dog, man. I mean, I got a one-eyed dog.
That's
I got
some street cred.
Dirt bikes. I mean, you can probably look around here. I got a dirty pool. I got catfish in the pond.
Love it.
But when they said, "Hey, this is actually not going to happen," I mean, dude, there was it felt like a minute of silence, but I know it wasn't a minute. It was like 3 seconds. And then before somebody was like, "This is bull," and dude, people started booing. The whole place started booing.
It's dangerous.
And I had taken my 15-year-old, and I was like, "Hey, let's mosey on out of here," And so because I mean, I don't know how many people does that place hold?
60,000 maybe?
60,000. And they didn't sell right behind.
Probably
so they
more
had
now.
So I don't know, maybe there were 50 or 55,000 people there. There's a lot of people.
A lot of folks.
And they're angry. And dude, when we started easing
probably
out,
a little sauced.
a little intoxicated. There were really long beer lines all night. Because they opened the gates at like 4 o'clock. They let people start drinking, at 4. And now it's 9:30, and
then
this
cancel
ain't
the
happening.
concert. That's a recipe for disaster.
It is.
Man.
It was shifty, man. It was shifty. But as we were leaving, you could see people starting to set stuff on fire in the parking lots, like his shirts and hats and stuff.
Man.
And I was like, let's just.
That hit him where it hurt.
Let's just. Well, no, he don't care. They paid for it.
No, I'm saying it hit them where it hurt. They hurt.
Yeah, that's true. They're mad. If you gotta burn your Morgan Wallen trucker hat, man. Yeah, your butt hurt about something. your feelings have been hurt by something.
I saw some unbelievable rants on social media from people.
Yeah,
it was intense.
I mean, it was all very questionable. You just go. I mean, really, did you guys not know this just a couple hours ago? You opened the gates, you let everybody in, you sold them, $28 chicken fingers and $18 beers, and dude, the merch lines were, I've never seen anything. We didn't buy anything. We bought chicken fingers. that night, and like maybe
$40 chicken finger.
and a bottle of water and a soda, a Dr. Pepper, and I think it was like $40 for all that. It was crazy. But people were, T-shirts, hats. It was a cold night. Blankets. They had Morgan Wallen fleece blankets, and the merch tents were maybe 8 to 12 lines long, and there were 100 people in each of those lines, and there were half a dozen merch tents scattered around Vault Hemingway. I mean, it was like there were thousands and thousands of people buying T-shirts for hours and hours and hours.
It's wild.
And like, you open the doors, you let them drink beer, you let them buy all the food, you let them buy all the merch. They had three openers, so there were 3 acts before him. They brought them all out, and then when they're done, each time, change the stage out, start the next one, start the next one.
Build up that anticipation.
Yeah, and then, hey guys, this ain't gonna happen. Like, you knew what was happening, whether or not he was really hurt, whether or not he was drunk, whatever. I don't have any knowledge about any of that. Some people said he was drunk. Some people said he really lost his voice.
Oh, the rumors were, there were dozens.
Like crazy.
Dozens, yeah.
Dozens is not even close. Dude, there were hundreds of people online say, "Oh, this is what it is. This is what." But
I saw him last night.
Yeah. People were.
I got a good friend who's got a good friend that was with him last night.
Well, dude, there was so much of that. So I had one guy that I knew in that area, and he said, "Oh man, his group rented out the library last night. Do you know that place, the library?"
Oh man, yeah.
I'd never heard of it. I mean, I'd never been there, but he was like, "Oh, he rented out the library, and he was down there till 4 a.m. just getting hammered." And then there were pictures online of him passed out on some girl's Airbnb where he snuck out of the library and ditched his security. I don't know if any of this is true, by the way, but I know they knew he wasn't going on. That was not a last-minute decision like, oh, we really thought this was going to happen. They knew he wasn't going to go on. They were just like, hey, we can either eat the whole thing, or we can let all these people in and let them buy a bunch of stuff and drink a bunch of $18 beers for 5 hours, and maybe we'll recoup some of this money we're about to lose. And I would say they probably made money. I don't know what it cost to rent that place out, but they made money on the beer and the T-shirts for sure.
It's a lot of people.
Yeah. If I go back to Oxford, what are some things I have to do?
Square Books, but I think you went to Square Books.
I didn't go.
Okay.
I saw it. We stayed we stayed at Graduate, which is not too far.
Yeah.
But we didn't. Square was closed when we went by there.
So Square Books is the best bookstore in the world.
I have heard many people say that.
It is excellently
Hand me that if you don't mind.
curated. Even just walking through and looking at the signed photographs of the authors that have been through that place is amazing. But they've got other bookstores around the square. They've got Off Square Books.
Yeah. Now, is that not owned by the same people?
Yeah.
Okay.
Same people, but if it's the way that it used to be, they had a radio show every Thursday night where they would have an author do a reading, and then they would have a band. And that was always just fantastic. Good stuff.
Off Square.
Off Square.
Okay.
Books. Yeah. So that's Thursday nights, if they do it the way they used to.
Yeah.
It's been a while. So the Square Books thing is one. I would go to Roanoke, William Faulkner's home.
Oh, yeah.
They turned that into a museum of sorts. I mean, they've got a lot of his personal effects there. And the property is beautiful and well maintained. That's a must.
I find him difficult to read.
He's not for everybody.
Yeah.
Long sentences.
Yeah.
Lots of stream of conscience.
But so sidebar, if you were going to point somebody to one book that you say, hey, if you're going to start with Faulkner, start here.
Probably one of the short stories.
Okay.
But my favorite book is Light in August.
Okay.
It's pretty intense. It's not for the faint of heart. But I like it. So that's
so they got to go to Roanoke. All right.
I would walk around campus. I mean, it's perennially ranked, number one.
Yeah.
I mean, they put a lot of work into that place. It's
And they
beautiful.
say they have the prettiest girls in the South.
I found my wife there.
Did you really? Oh, that's sweet. That's sweet.
It's not a bad place to be.
Yeah, yeah.
To spend 4 years. For
Yeah,
sure.
I can imagine.
And I will say that it's one of those places where it's an SEC school, and
Yeah.
I would say this is probably the same for all of them to some degree, maybe with the exception of Vandy. But it can be as difficult
Mm-hmm.
or as not difficult as you want it to be.
Okay,
You-
how so?
You can learn a lot, and the resources are there. The minds, the professors are there. The resources are there to learn a lot if you're motivated. But if you just but if you want to not put in as much
Right.
effort,
Yeah.
and have a good time, you
Yeah.
can do that too.
You can do that too. Right.
Um,
I mean, it is consistently ranked the number one party school in the SEC, right?
it's a lot of fun.
That's Blake's way of saying yes.
Well, I will say though that I met my wife helping her move into her dorm her sophomore year.
Oh man,
So
were you just helping young ladies move into their dorm out of the goodness of your heart,
Well, her
or you saw her from afar and was like, I need to
roommate,
help
her
her?
roommate was a friend of mine,
Okay,
so I was helping her move in, and yeah,
she
met
was
her
a
right
freshman. You were a sophomore.
there. We were both sophomores.
Both
So we
sophomores,
went through
okay.
the entire freshman year, never meeting each other. We had tons of mutual friends, but it's good because it wasn't the right time.
Yeah, yeah.
I was even more of a knucklehead than I am now. And it really wasn't until that summer I went on a mission trip with Campus Crusade, which is now commonly known as Crew. I went on a mission trip with them the summer after my freshman year, and just it was transformative. And when I got back, I was definitely more ready to meet my wife. I'm glad I met her then.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, a little time and space away from being a knucklehead so much.
For sure.
I love it.
For sure. And it's funny that trip was at Panama City Beach.
Oh man!
Of all places.
Oh, I mean that's like the home of teenage or young adult
Debauchery.
Southern debauchery. I mean,
It was
Panama-
nuts.
PC Beach. That's where you get airbrush T-shirts that say like "This pod's for God" and
It
stuff
was
like
nuts. It was nuts. I can't remember how many of us we had. I mean, we had dozens of us that had rented out this dump of a hotel down on the Strip.
that. Oh,
And we lived in that. But the first night we were walking out of there and we were headed to a Bible study, and just a truckload of people drove by. Woohoo!
yeah,
Flash.
probably topless. Yeah, I
Flashed
was
right
gonna
there,
say,
and I'm
yeah,
like, oh goodness.
dude, Jesus, please keep our eyes straight forward. Just keep our eyes pure.
But it was great. It was a great summer, and
Sounds like it.
I never saw it. Would have never expected to have had that kind of summer in Panama City Beach.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Came
back ready to meet my wife, and the rest
Timing
is
was
history.
right. God's timing, man. What about that?
That's right.
I love it. All right, I got a few. I call this like the lightning round.
Okay.
Okay, these might be dumb questions, but I'm just gonna ask them to you. Just give me like the first thing that pops
Fire
in your mind.
away.
Okay. Do you have any family heirlooms that you're excited to pass down to your kids one day?
Yeah, my father's gun collection,
Tell me more about that. How many guns? What do we talk about?
countless.
Like more than 20.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And they have stories.
I was gonna say, are these antique guns? Are they personal?
Yeah.
Like, oh, I first started dove hunting with this gun, or
Yeah. So definitely some of those. I mean, my great grandfather's 12 gauge shotgun that my dad has used forever. That's a good one.
what kind of gun is it? Do you know?
Browning.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But you name it, he's got it, and a lot of those have been passed down.
Yeah. Pistols, hunting rifles,
Little bit of everything.
shotguns.
But number one, and again, I've got 4 brothers now. One of my brothers passed away, but I'm not saying I'm getting this because who knows? I'm sure we'll have to all talk about it. But I
Yeah.
love to get. My dad has a 16 gauge sawed off shotgun that he brought home from Vietnam.
Oh my goodness!
So he's decorated Vietnam vet, and yeah, it belonged to Viet Cong.
Really?
Yeah, and he got it home, so you can still see, you know, there are a lot of markings on the gun that identify it's French made.
So this watch right here, it's interesting because Vietnam doesn't come up a lot for me, but it's a Hamilton field watch. Does this look tiny on my wrist, by the way? Does that look
a little smaller?
It does look a little smaller. I didn't realize it was that little when I bought it. I picked it up off eBay. I love birth year items. Mm-hmm. And so this is a Hamilton field watch.
Like your bourbons.
That's true. That's true. But this is a Hamilton field watch that the listing said, now, and I know it was made in 1977, so it's on the back there, the serial number. But the listing said it was standard issue for Army Rangers in Vietnam.
Wow.
And, dude, what a cool little watch. Like, look at that thing. But I don't
really
have
cool.
a lot of experience or even knowledge about Vietnam, but I just thought it was interesting you brought that up because they said that was standard Ranger issue in Vietnam.
I'm going to have to show this to my dad.
Yeah.
Because my dad was in a Special Forces unit with some Rangers. Called a MAC-V unit. There's only 10 of them.
Yeah.
They knew each other really well. So, yeah.
Man,
I'll
sawed-off
take a picture of it and
shotgun.
ask him.
Yeah, I'd love to. I mean, and that listing could have been total BS. I hope it didn't, but it's a cool watch.
Well, I'm sure he'd be able to tell you because he can recall all that stuff.
Man, is there trauma from that for him?
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, I bet that's difficult.
Actually, and I don't think you'd mind me saying this, but he was actually visiting us in Virginia this past weekend, and I was working a show as usual, and a balloon went off, and he.
Oh, I would
jumped.
imagine, dude.
But yeah, I don't think people appreciate how much those guys brought back that they haven't talked about.
Yeah.
But I've got friends that came back, more recently from other wars that are dealing with that same stuff, and those folks were walking all around us, and we just
that's hard.
We just don't. I don't think we fully appreciate what they went through.
No, I agree. Yeah. What is your? I don't curse a lot. I do sometimes privately, maybe with my wife or on this show. I might say it's a shit show or something like that. That's the third time I've said. I don't ever say.
You're
that
racking
word.
it up. If
I'm
you're
like,
developing a habit.
Now I'm like, I'm just gonna keep saying it.
Provocative.
But I'm provocative. I'm a provocateur. But I have like other words. Dadgummit, son of a gun, like my Southern Christian curse words. What are some of your favorites?
Goodness gracious.
Yeah. Goodness gracious. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
Yeah. I think we've passed that to our girls too. They say that a lot. And I think some of their friends make fun of them for saying it because Yeah.
I thought we were going to avoid this sun, by the way. Are you feeling that on your side? Is it starting to hit you a little bit?
Not too bad.
All right, if you're okay,
Or
I was going to
maybe-
say we could slide this way a little bit. It sound a little
The
weird.
old fashioned may be numbing the effect.
You're
a
right.
little
That's
bit.
exactly right. It makes it a little more bearable.
That's right. People wonder why bourbon's popular in the South.
Oh, it's not bad.
I don't know how people survived here without air conditioning.
Well,
And my dad tells me stories. I mean, he was
no air conditioning.
no air conditioning.
But they were all skinny
he was
back then too.
delivered in
dude.
his aunt's house. I mean, it was just a different world.
But
we're
were
here talking about AI.
Yeah, but people were not. You look at photos of life back then; they weren't overweight, dude. They were skinny, and now I get to go in there and it's 68 degree or 71 degree, whatever it is, in my comfort house. I get to lay on my comfy sofa,
Getting soft, man.
watch TV, watch golf or some kind of leisure sport. Pickleball. Pickleball's a sport. Who cares about that? I do. I like pickleball. All right. Do you care about your mayonnaise? Do you care? Like,
I do, and I have a feeling I'm going to get judged.
Are you a Hellman's guy?
I am.
Ah,
I'd never seen
I
Dukes
thought
until
we were
just a few
friends,
years ago.
bro. I don't understand.
You want to know something weirder than that? This is going to blow your mind. Until I was maybe a senior in high school, I
Don't
had
say
never
Miracle Whip.
had sweet tea.
Oh, wow.
My parents, again, like I said, I mean they've been Mississippians, at least on my dad's side, for at least 7 generations. Americans, probably 10 generations and more. We drink non unsweet.
What were you drinking? Unsweet?
They drink unsweet. They still do to this day. It's the weirdest thing in the world, but in every other way. Well, except for Hellman's. They love Hellman's. And every other way, they're bona fide.
Yeah, I don't know, bro. I mean, unsweet tea and Hellman's, that doesn't...
It's weird.
That doesn't make sense to me.
Let me ask you this, because I've heard that this is a Southern thing. And I did it when I was little, but I haven't done it in 30 years because I think it's gross.
Yeah.
They still, to this day, put mayo on their peanut butter sandwiches.
Hey, listen, dude.
You've done it.
No, I have not, but I could bring my wife out right now. It's one of her favorite things ever.
Oh, it's so
she
weird.
She loves peanut butter and mayonnaise
so
sandwiches.
Weird.
It is super weird. Now, I think it comes from, did they grow up kind of lower income?
It's hard to say back then.
Yeah.
I would say they were maybe middle class, upper middle class.
Yeah. I think it was a thing back then, dude. I don't know. I mean, she tells the story that, like, from her parents and grandparents, that it was something from, like, scarcity, and it was bread, and it was mayo, and it was peanut butter, and let's slap this stuff together, and, a little bit of protein with that.
That's true. Man, I've got stories. My grandmother's still alive. She's in her 90s. She's got stories of them, sneaking condensed milk.
Yeah.
Sugar,
Oh,
and
absolutely.
just eating it out of the can and stuff.
I did that. No, I didn't sneak it and eat it out of the can. But
they was being rationed back during the Depression.
I never lived in a life where
they
sweet
paid
condensed
for it.
milk was being rationed. But I did live where I loved it, and if my mom had to use it for a recipe, bro, I was grabbing that can out of the garbage. Like, she put it in. Whoa! Let me get that, and let me take a spatula
in there.
Let me scrape that out.
So good.
Oh, sweetened condensed milk, so good.
So good.
When I say Southerner, who's the first person that comes to your mind?
This is random. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah,
the first thing that came to my mind were the Duke boys.
Amen. Bo and Luke, baby. So this is sad.
That's so random.
Well, but
it's the first thing that came to my mind.
They were Bo and Luke Duke, Hazard County, Georgia.
Yeah, man.
Their cousin Daisy. Oh my goodness,
man.
Jesse, Roscoe P. Coltrane,
Cooter.
Boss Hog Cooter. Man,
Cooter's legacy has lived on. Have you seen all those museums?
Yes, I have. There's one in Nashville.
There's one there by Opry Mills.
Opry Mills, yeah. Opryland has one, or not Opryland, but right there on that main drag.
Do you miss Opryland as much as I do?
I miss Opryland like crazy. Yeah, I really do. That was if I look back on Nashville, which I grew up here, I was born and raised in Nashville. That's one of the biggest mistakes our city has made. Yeah. Opryland was a treasure.
That was great. So unique, too.
Dude. Just that Americana Southern vibe, family friendly, all the shows, the Flume Zoom, the Wabash Cannonball, it was just unbelievable. And
uniquely Nashville.
Yeah, it was uniquely Nashville. It was a theme park that had the spirit of Nashville all over it. And to look back and go, we turned that place into a mall. It's got a daggum Lego store. I got nothing against Legos. I love Legos. All my boys, my girl, all my kids have loved Legos.
Yeah.
But we turned that place into a mall where people go buy shoes and popcorn
that they can buy anywhere.
Yeah, and manufactured Asian chicken at the food court. Like, I don't understand why we did that. It's sad. And there's a coffee table book floating around. It's an old one about Opryland. So it's not a modern day creation, but I'm like, I need to figure out how to get my hands on one of those because
there's another business idea, Chris.
Well, no, it's
but
there.
You're gonna have to manage more than 2 or 3 people if you start back up Opryland.
No, I don't want that. But yeah, Opryland was. I had my first meaningful kiss on the what did you call them? Sky trams? I don't remember what they called.
Yeah.
What they were called? But they had these.
It's romantic, man.
I mean, dude. I kind of want to say her name right now, but
Kimberly wouldn't be happy with that.
Yeah, I don't know. But it's funny. I can remember her first name. I don't remember her last name.
It happens. We're old, man.
Devin. Her first name was Devin. Devin. She went to Greenbrier. I don't know. I was 11, 12.
Man, you're starting early, man.
But dude, it wasn't like a real. It wasn't like a real.
But it was a bigger deal than that, though.
Oh yeah, I mean, she was my girlfriend.
Yeah.
We met. I was playing Little League baseball. I wasn't even going to Greenbrier schools then, but she was, and she was on a softball team there. And we met at the ball field one Saturday. And I mean, ended up that where you're on the phone like for 3 hours every night. Hey, what'd you do
Where the phone
today?
goes dead.
Oh yeah, but you're still there.
Battery's going out.
No battery. These were all corded. What are you talking about, dude? These were like wrinkled cords.
That's right. You got an earlier start. Man.
Devin, what was her name?
Devin, if you're out there, tell us your last name.
No, I'm sorry. It wasn't Devin, bro. It was Davin. Davin. This is Davin Justice. I just remembered her name. Is that weird? It's weird. Davin Justice. Yeah, that was my first kiss on the Opryland Skytram. You know, you get on one thing, you rode all the way over here, and I was like,
imagine the memories at that place.
oh, dude, that's unbelievable.
They're all gone.
Opryland,
they're all gone.
Flim Zoom. Golly, I love that place. All right, what's the tiniest work you've ever done? What's the smallest one? You like the noise our little pool cleaner over there makes?
Yeah, it's very zen.
Oh dear.
I like. I don't know. The smallest was probably I did a $100 bill that was really, really tiny, really, really tiny.
Like how wide? Do you remember how wide it was?
It was probably half the width of my pinky nail.
That just blows me away.
Yeah,
I don't understand it. I don't understand it.
But the challenge, and I do money because I just think it's funny. It's one of those universally recognized things.
Yeah, for sure.
So you can do it really small.
Yep. People instantly know what it is.
But I know it's been rendered well when somebody can look at it and tell the denomination. So if they're like, oh, that's a $5 bill.
Yeah,
that's a $100 bill
yeah,
or
that's
whatever.
A Benjamin Franklin.
Yeah, that's when I know. All right, I did a good job with that. But
oh, man. Do you have a favorite piece you've ever done?
Yeah, sentimental. I did the really well-known catfish restaurant outside of Oxford, Mississippi, Taylor Grocery. So that's another one you need to
Taylor Grocery. Okay, still open today?
Yeah, man, packed every time it opens.
Catfish,
the best fried catfish you will have.
I love
in your
catfish,
life.
man. I love it. I love it so much.
And you drive by it and you wouldn't think anything of it, but
yeah,
dude, it is life changing.
Taylor Grocery.
Taylor Grocery.
How big was that piece? Do you remember?
It was actually a little bit bigger, but that was when I first got started. That was really, I think, maybe one of the first pieces that I really thought, man, this is good enough to where people would want this, and people started asking for prints of it and stuff. So
I love it.
But man, so we talk about places with memories. So many dates, with my wife. So many Friday night, going out for the football game at Ole Miss nights.
Taking her to Taylor Grocery.
Great times with my family and my kids later on. It's just special stuff, man.
I love it. I love it. So last one. What is there something about you that you could say right now that people who know you would say, what? I didn't know that about him.
As a full-time artist, I'm not sure I can surprise him anymore.
Like something surprising that people would not know about you. If they heard it, they'd be like, what, Blake?
Oh, man, I don't know. I'm kind of an open book to people.
Or it could be even like something you're good at that people wouldn't guess that you're good at.
Golly.
Like I'll give you a prompt just to kind of help me. I
give
sat
me
on the guy's
some.
thing. I sat on a guy's podcast the other day, and he asked me that same question.
Mm-hmm.
I've never asked him about that before, but I thought it was curious. I was like, man, that's pretty good. But it instantly came to me. I am pretty staunchly anti-war, and I don't know that people would.
Yeah, I wouldn't
know
guess
me.
that.
They would be like, wait a minute,
Yeah.
conservative. Probably a Republican.
Southerners are always bellicose.
That's
yeah.
always real true. Those
Yeah.
things are still true about me. I'm very conservative. But I am very much anti-war. And I view that as I'm still very much pro-military, pro-troops, pro-America, very
you can
patriotic.
do both. Yeah.
But I go, I don't want our young men and women sacrificing their lives for these just like senseless wars I feel like we get drug into. But that's a nuanced kind of opinion that most people I think would not pin that on me. They'd be like, "Oh no, he's just this pro-America," which
Yeah.
I am, but I'm also very anti-war.
Yeah.
And that's a little bit of a curveball.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything like that about you that you go,
I don't know. I mean, hearing you talk about that hits pretty close to home.
Yeah.
Because like we've talked about earlier, the people that only know me as an artist don't know about all this other stuff that I used to do.
yeah.
And the people that only know me as business school career coach who focused specifically in high finance and,
They would be
help
shocked
people
to
get
learn
into
you're an
Wall
artist.
Street
Yeah,
would
yeah.
know that I'm an artist. So yeah, it just depends on who I'm talking to, because quite honestly, I think the conservative people in my life are kind of surprised at some of my views sometimes,
Yeah.
and then the liberal people in my life are pretty concerned, or surprised by
pretty concerned.
some of the views in my life. And
Yeah.
I think there was a period of time where I was kind of unsettled by that and thought, well, maybe I have like some systematic flaw in how I think.
No.
And maybe all this doesn't fit together. And you know what? It probably doesn't. I'm not going for perfection.
Right.
My goal in life is to trust perfection.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? To trust Jesus, and I think that's the center of where all these other opinions or ideas I have, eventually, that's what matters. That's all I want to tell people that I know for certain.
Yeah. Amen. Do you find that hard to talk about sometimes, your faith?
I mean, I'd be lying if I was a person in this day and age and say it was always easy.
Yeah.
But but I'll also say that I've had a lot of conversations about faith with people that I didn't necessarily. I think it was a surprise to them that we found ourselves talking about it. But I have found that if you ask people the right questions about why, and you stay there, you're usually only 2 or 3 questions away from the most important questions about life. And that you could start talking about career or whatever, but when you start going deeper into why, why do you do that? Why is that important?
Yeah.
It doesn't take long, and then you just kind of have to have the patience and the. It's sad to say this, but the courage just to kind of sit with people and just kind of listen, but then to also speak, and to speak truth in love, which is sort of a rare thing these days.
For sure, yeah.
People think, well, I can only love or I can only speak truth.
Yeah. And if you speak truth, a lot of times people think you're supposed to shout it at people, and
Sure.
It's crazy. Crazy.
Sure. But I was talking about that summer after my freshman year in college. I think that was the first time that I actually got beyond sort of the cultural Christianity that I grew up with. That I think I don't know about kids these days, but I think people our age, most of us grew up around that. It's like you ask anybody, oh yeah,
Yeah.
I believe that or
Yeah.
whatever. But I think that was the first time that I actually sat down and read it for myself, and asked myself, what is in here? Do I believe it? What are the implications for my life and for all of reality if this is true?
Yeah.
And it was transformative. So yeah, I don't think anybody was ever argued into heaven.
I don't think it's ever happened. Yeah.
But I do think I think it's important, for me at least, to be able to give people a rational explanation for why I believe the things that I believe.
Yeah.
And also why none of my hope is in me. I mean, it's certainly not in this art career. It's not in my health, as evidenced by every day I wake up and I feel a little bit worse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm there.
It's in none of these things.
Yeah.
All that stuff is passing away, and if you pay attention long enough, you can see it in real time. And that's what we've got is, we can either live for Him or live for something else. That's really the ultimate question that we've all got to answer.
That's a good spot to end it in. We've been doing this for an hour and a half.
It's a long time.
Feels like 5 minutes.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Wow, when you're having old fashions.
And drinking old fashions.
Blake Gore, I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you coming out here. I know you got a busy weekend.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. It's always a pleasure. Whenever we get to talk, which is at events, we never really run into each other. I mean, you're obviously in Virginia now. But when we do have those moments, I always love it. I always enjoy our time to talk. So
likewise.
When I started wanting to do more of these, I was like, I got to get Blake. I mean, next time he's down here, we got to do something. So I appreciate you being here.
Yes, sir. Thanks, buddy.